Now, it's been reported that more than 3,200 schools in 7 provinces will be closed over the next 3 years. That's according to the Department of Basic Education. This announcement has caused some concerns, but the department says this is nothing new, as it's been trying to identify those schools that are non-viable rather, so as to also be able to cut costs. Mhlanga is the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, and he joins us in our studios here in Johannesburg this morning. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming through. Now, what does the department look into before coming to this conclusion?
Well, we look at a whole range of issues. The first one is the number of learners in a school. We have norms and standards that guide us as far as that one is concerned. We say that a secondary school needs to have a minimum of 200 learners. And you find that some schools have a number lower than that. And once it becomes lower than that, then it becomes too expensive to run, which means there are other constraints as well that come in, because it means the learners in that school are not able to have certain subjects, because you can no longer have a certain number of teachers. As for primary schools, the minimum number is 135, but you also have schools that have numbers that are much lower than that. For example, 21 learners in a school. It ends up in a situation where the teachers are teaching several grades all at once, possibly in one classroom, because you cannot have 5 learners in one classroom. So when we merge or close down certain schools, we are trying to solve some of those problems.
All right, so what happens to the learners affected when that process takes place? Are they placed in other schools perhaps, especially if we look into the issue of farm schools?
Yes, when we close and move the learners to another school. And there it becomes a normal school size, which is manageable as far as the finances are concerned, as far as the human resources are concerned, but also in terms of the curriculum imperatives, because you need to make sure that learners have all the subjects that are required for them to be able to proceed with their education. But if the numbers are not allowing, then you need to make a decision.
Yeah, right. Now, you were telling me off air that this is not necessarily something new. It's always been happening. But why has it raised so much eyebrows this time around?
Well,
is it perhaps politically motivated? Because the DA was in fact saying that when they wanted this move to happen in the Western Cape back in 2012, the ANC said no. But now this is happening. 1,902 schools in the Eastern Cape, 865 KZN, 233 Northwest, 93 Free State, 73 Limpopo, 50 Northern Cape, and 41 in Mhlanga. Is it politically motivated?
Well, to a certain extent, you could say that, because there were some concerns raised, but the real concern really is about the process which is followed or not followed in certain cases, because there have been situations where our districts did not follow process. There are 10 steps that you need to follow when you want to merge a school with another. You need to write to the school, inform them in writing, and also publish the notice to close down the school, and then give the SGBs and the community up to 90 days for them to make their input. And then you need to go to a public hearing system and then hear appeals as well. So you find that sometimes our officials feel that the process is too long, it shouldn't be followed, due to whatever reasons that they might be considering at that particular point in time. But as far as the merging and closing down of schools, that is something that is happening right across all provinces as in the normal course of business. So there's really nothing new. It's just that sometimes when you put the numbers together and you say up to 3,000 schools are going to be closed down in the next 3 years, it sounds like a huge number.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but we're also building new schools, bigger schools which are able to accommodate those learners in one school which has facilities which were previously not available in the schools which have since been closed down.
All right. Now, I've mentioned all the 7 provinces. The Western Cape province and Gauteng do not feature on those numbers. Do you have the numbers of the schools that will close down in those 2 provinces?
Not at the moment. They're busy verifying the data, because remember, you need to audit the schools, look at the learner numbers in those schools, and make sure that you have good reasons for you to want to close down those schools. So these 2 provinces are busy working on that. The data will be available as soon as the numbers have been verified and are able to be made public.
All right, because I think that was another concern in Parliament, that you do not have those numbers for the 2 provinces.
No, they're there. The numbers are there, but you don't just publish, because it's not a decision that you take lightly. You need to make sure that you've considered the circumstances of the community around, and the teachers as well, because there's a whole legislative framework that you need to take into account: the Constitution, Schools Act, Labour Relations Act, Basic Conditions of Employment Act, and a whole range of other pieces of legislation that must come into play. So before you can make a list available to the public, you need to make sure that you've gone through all those necessary processes.
All right. And when these schools merge or they close down, does it necessarily mean that the resources that were used at those particular schools will be channeled, perhaps to beef up the resources of other schools?
Absolutely. When we merge a school, we look at what the two schools do not have, and then we merge those resources, even if it's teachers or computers or whatever is required. We make sure that these things are still used, and the building will remain empty, and it will be used for other reasons. And we then proceed from there. Ours is to make sure that the quality of education of the new school where the learners have been moved to.
But there are still concerns in relation to the quality of education and the improvement that's seen at the previously disadvantaged schools. So there's still a long way to go.
Well, yes, there's still a long way to go. That's why we will continue to monitor the performance of each and every school and make a decision on that basis to say which school goes where. Remember, some of the decisions to close school is because the land on which the school is built is private land and the owner wants that land back. And as a result of that, we need to accommodate our learners elsewhere, provide learner transport to make sure that they're able to still access education, school nutrition, and all of those services that we provide to our learners. So there's a whole range of things that we take into account. That's why the process can take up to 9 months before we shut down a school.
All right. No, Elijah, will leave it at that. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. There you have it. That's the Basic Education Department spokesperson, Elijah Mhlanga, talking to us about the reports that about 3,200 schools will close down in 7 provinces in the next coming 3 years. Let's quickly take a break here on Morning Live. The show continues after this.